Living his boring life as a bank executive manager, Nathan Caine, Jack Quaid, finds himself in a world of pain when he decides to go after Sherry Margrave, Amber Midthunder, a co-worker he has feelings for after thieves rob the bank and take her hostage. Good thing it can't feel pain, right? Novocaine was marketed as one of those silly concept movies that is just for entertainment. But a movie for entertainment's sake doesn't mean it should disregard story or structure. No. And by all means, do not do that to your story. Part of what makes an entertaining movie is a clear and interesting concept. And well, just the concept alone for Novocaine piqued my interest. Though it is a highly tropey movie, I believe it was executed well because it stuck to the concept and structure and didn't deviate from it. What you see is what you get, essentially. Whether you agree that Novocaine was a good movie is entirely your opinion. However, we can view this movie and see how well it implemented said concept into the story to create an entertaining watch. So, using Novocaine as reference, let's take a look at three parts that make up a concept movie and how to grow a concept into a movie. Concept. The concept of a movie can also be described as the direction of the movie, also known as the promise of the premise, the tidbits that you mentioned during an elevator pitch, if you will. The way I see it, concept indicates the outline of the story, and the story of the movie is everything, encompassing concept, theme, and structure. In other words, the concept is what you would use to bring attention to your movie, to hook the audience into watching your movie. Based on that information, one of the best things you can do in a movie is go all out with your concept. Of course, there is a limit, but when you play with your strengths, you can have an enjoyable movie much like Novocaine. One thing to note before you write anything is that the concept cannot override the theme. You must have both theme and concept in your screenplay, because without a theme, the concept, though fun, essentially serves no purpose, making it baseless. Anyway, enough talk. Let's go over this. In Novocaine, the concept is simple. A normal guy with a genetic disorder gets into a chaotic mess where his disability proves to be a saving grace. Whereas the theme is finding courage in doing what it takes for the person to bring sunshine into your life. Evident and told to us by Earl's Louis Betty's Jr.'s character, who tells Nathan during the Save the Cat beat. Therefore, the journey must follow the concept and theme simultaneously. So, Nathan must get into messes where his inability to feel pain comes into play and he gains courage in doing so. You're starting to see where I'm getting at? To sum it all up, the beat structure of a screenplay changes depending on the genre you choose, and the concept will help guide your story through each beat, with the help of the theme, of course. But then comes the question, how do we choose a concept? Or how do we know if a concept is good? Well, in my opinion, the answer is a bit simple. A concept that makes you go, huh, that sounds like a movie I'd watch. But if you want a more technical answer, then a good concept should have some sort of irony, thematic message, and entertainment value. But not wanting to sound like a broken record, I'll say this. Having a concept is not the full picture. You'll need to understand how to carry this concept into fruition, and that all starts at the setup. Setup. What good is a concept if you can't get there? Having a concept is only half the battle. What good is it for Nathan not to feel pain if he doesn't go on this wild ride, or simultaneously battle against the pain that isn't physical but emotional? But how do we begin this journey? That's where setup comes in handy. A much necessary step to outline all characters, theme, plot, and story. And by setup, I am referring to both what is needed to set up the story prior to writing and the setup beat within the structure of the script. It'll make sense soon, I promise. Let's begin. Novocaine is a boring normal dude who has to live life differently on account of his disability. He has many precautions and safeguards all over his home and work because although he can't feel pain, the side effects and damages still applies to his body. We continue understanding his character while also setting up part of the journey when Sherry enters work. Nathan has feelings for her, but is too afraid to do anything about it. Per structure, all of the setup is, well, set up within the first 10 minutes of the movie. In short, it's every character needed for the A story, the hero and his character flaw. Within the first 10 minutes, we visually see how Nathan lives his life with his condition. Though it is presented in a very stale and obvious way, this is where the cliche and tropes come in. It provides all the setups necessary for us, the audience, to understand where the story is going or will go. After accidentally causing Nathan to spill coffee on himself, she invites him out to eat. Nathan rejects the offer, but seeing how his life is, changes his mind and accepts her invitation. The last bits of exposition and setup is in this dinner scene. Nathan tries pie for the first time, and in doing so, begins his new journey of risk taking. The catalyst and debate present itself when Nathan debates going on a date with Sherry. What if I mess this up? He questions. But much like the pie, he works with the courage and goes. Nathan's life changes as a result. Going back to work after a successful date night, bank robbers show up, demand the safe code, and kill Nigel, Craig Jackson. In the process, being the only person with the safe combination, they force Nathan to give up the code by threatening to kill Sherry. The police arrive earlier than anticipated, forcing the bank robbers to take Sherry as hostage, prompting Nathan to chase after her. The break into two beat. Now, this makes up the setup to the break into two portion of the script. As for setup of the story, we need to give a reason for Nathan to be forced into this upside down world. An easy way to do that is through a love interest. If Sherry was never a hostage, Nathan wouldn't have gone after her and learned how to be courageous by going after the person who makes him feel something. Consequently, these bank robbers set the motion for Nathan's world to change. It can also be said that if they didn't rob the bank, the story wouldn't continue, hence the need for a setup. And no, Nathan would not learn to be courageous if they didn't rob the bank, because as we will soon find out, Sherry only went out with Nathan because she was trying to get the safe code out of him. Your task as a screenwriter is to write all of this setup in a way that is engaging while following the rules. What I'm trying to say is that the story and setup in Novocaine is written in a way that follows structure, but at the same time is presented in a very basic form, which can make some viewers say this movie was bad for doing so. However, we're focusing on how well the concept was implemented. Remember? One important thing to note before I continue is to also have setups within the setup for future payoffs. It's like a reward for attentive viewers and can be used for comedic relief, foreshadowing, and callbacks. But be careful, you don't want a Chekhov's gun situation in your story, so make every setup count. The main takeaway is that everything that happens in this story revolves around the concept. After the break into two, every step and hurdle along the way, Nathan must overcome these hurdles that would help change his character while relating to the concept. For example, he won the first fight not because he was stronger or better, but because of his inability to feel pain allowed him to grab the gun in boiling oil and shoot Ben, unwillingly, sure, but the result is the same. But before I get ahead of myself, even though every step of the way revolves around the concept, you must understand that the important thing is how you execute the scenes. Execution. Lastly, you need to execute it well, because even if you have a good concept and you laid down all the key setups, the story can still be executed poorly, and thus you run the risk of losing the audience, and worse, making them say the movie was bad. I can go on and on about the technical side of scriptwriting, but in short, the best way to execute a scene well is to remain true to the structure, progressing the story through conflict, where in the end, the protagonist grows and learns something. From the fights to not getting stunned by booby traps or being tortured, Nathan perseveres for the sake of love, and all of it was executed well because it was entertaining. So, even if the antagonists are essentially two dimensional, where their plan doesn't really make any sense, and motivations only stem from money, even though the situations are obviously constructed for the concept where Nathan has to undergo these obstacles that obviously will inflict pain, like a booby trapped house, it works because everything comes together to create an enjoyable watch. For obvious reasons, every step Nathan takes leads him to get hurt. From the tattoo parlor being a huge guy, to a booby trapped house, to being handcuffed in a runaway ambulance. Nathan gets out of these messes in a very humorous way, using his gift and proving Sherry's point of him being a superhero. In my opinion, it works great. The situations, the character dynamics, and the crazy fights all come together to be an enjoyable watch, despite how tropey and cliche the story and movie was. In conclusion, a movie hooks and entertains us if it provides the promise of the premise. In this case, it's the concept. By giving us the concept, I feel Novocaine succeeded as the story progressed hand in hand with structure and concept. Is Novocaine perfect? No. Is it fun? Yes. Personally, even though there are some holes and flaws within this movie, it was fun enough for me to call it successful. As I've mentioned before, you can see each beat within this movie. Though Sherry's ulterior motive was a bit predictable, the antagonists were a bit two dimensional, and part of that story was contrived. It followed the concept, and it followed it well. So if you're writing a script with a specific concept, much like Novocaine, don't be afraid to go all out with it. Have fun. Just remember to stay in between the lines of structure and its beats while following the rules of script writing, and be sure to have a theme. By doing so, you can convert a concept into a well executed story. But, anyways, those are just my thoughts. Did you enjoy the movie? Let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you on my next review. Until then, God bless.